Everyone, and welcome to the HUPMOBILE webinar on seamless sustainable mobility. My name is Kristiina Paju and I will act as your moderator today. As we are on a really tight schedule today, I will quickly just mention that we'll have 6 presentations and there will be a Q&A session after each of the 3 presentation slots. And the questions you can ask through the Q&A feature on Zoom. That will make sure that all the panelists will receive your questions beforehand and they can get some time to prepare. So we highly appreciate that if you ask questions, then do so during the presentation and we'll address them in the Q&A session. For other comments and feedbacks, please use the chat. And we'll kick off with the Menti. So if you can go to www.menti.com and add this code. I will quickly share the screen as well, so we can see where you are joining us from today. So the voting is now on. Okay, there we'll see. We'll have Helsinki, we have Södertälje, Sweden. Hello, everyone. We'll have Kotka. Nice to have you here as well. Espoo, Turku. Hello, everyone. Great. Where else? Valkane. Hello. Riga. Nice to have you here. Wonderful. Let's have a few more seconds before I hand over to Tero. Okay. Nice, but really nice crowd we'll have here, and hopefully you will enjoy the webinar. I will give the floor now to Tero and Mervi to officially welcome you to this HUPMOBILE webinar.
Tero, you're muted.
Hello everyone, I'm Tero Hahtela, Project Manager at Aalto University, and I warmly welcome you all to this HUPMOBILE webinar on seamless sustainable mobility. I'll briefly introduce you our HUPMOBILE project. HUPMOBILE, Holistic Urban and Peri-Urban Mobility, is a project in the Interreg Baltic Sea region's 3rd call for proposals in innovation, natural resources and sustainable transport. The project started in the beginning of 2019 and we will end at the end of this year, 2021. Total budget of the project is 2 million euros, of which European Regional Development Funding is 1.5 million euros. As typically to these all Interreg projects, it's about learning together, transferring knowledge and increasing capabilities of the partners, and in this case it's in the theme of sustainable holistic urban mobility. The key partners in these projects are the cities, Turku, Hamburg, Tallinn and Riga. And then there are also project expert partners, Aalto University, KTH Royal Institute of Technology, UBC, Union of the Baltic Cities Sustainable Cities Committee, and ITL Digital Labs Estonia. We have different work packages and tasks in our project, but they go mostly under 4 different themes: improving production, logistics and urban logistics in the port areas, mobility management and the needs of residents in the same port areas which have lots of transmitted mobility, passengers, cargo, cars and everything. And the question is how we can make these areas better for the citizens as well as the logistics. And to solve and ease these cases, we have also here in our project themes related to utilizing technology and intelligent transport systems. And we develop and utilize small mini pilots to enhance and try new technologies and solutions in our partner cities. And also, of course, multimodality in urban transport is of core importance, and therefore we have developed different new and novel solutions and try to take the best practices from everywhere in the Interreg BSR area and especially in our cities, and then share this knowledge and collect it together so that also others could apply them later after the project. So that's all from my side, and I want to thank you. And now I would like to give floor to Mervi. Welcome all, and I'm sure we have great presentations today.
Thank you, Tero. Hello, everybody. My name is Mervi Lehto, and I work as a program manager in maritime projects in the city of Turku. And one of my projects is this HUPMOBILE. On behalf of the city of Turku, I want to welcome you all to this webinar and to our lovely, beautiful city. Obviously, it is best if you can experience Turku alive. But as a teaser, we will now show you a video so you can get a little glimpse of Turku and our river Aura, which is the heart of the city and gateway to the archipelago. This video clip is from the newest movie called Odotus, and it will be published early next year. I wish you all very nice webinar day. Thank you from my side.
Okay, thank you, Mervi and Tero, for this warm welcome. So I am happy now to invite our first speaker, Ms. Hanna Luck from Turku Science Park on our virtual stage. Ms. Luck will tell us about green mobility chains in the archipelago. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Let me just get my presentation running for you. So good morning from Turku, and I'm so happy to be here and have the honor to present our project. Okay, so as said, I come from Turku Science Park, and I'll tell a little bit about our organization. So we are called also Turku Business Region, which means that under our whatever we do or our teams do are located here in Turku, and we work with a sub-region. And in this sub-region, we have several cities, 22,000 companies in total, and 60 institutes of higher education and business-friendly municipalities. We are working on not only tourism, but other industries are health, then clean, experience, which is the department that I work with, maritime, and technology. Here are some numbers from our industry here in the region. So under experience, we also have feature films or film commission, as well as the digital and AV solutions. The tourism here generates over 4,000 years worth of annual labor, and is worth about the tourists visiting here is worth about 1 million. Oh, sorry, we get about 1.3 million tourist visits in this region yearly. Obviously, the last 12 months have been exceptional due to the pandemic. But more about the project that I'm telling you today. This was started already in 2019 in the fall, and a lot of the project is already completed and behind us. It is partly funded by leverage of the EU fund, and we are kind of closing to end of the project at the end of the summer in August. The total budget was a little bit over 350,000. We have a project partner here as well, which is the Turku University of Applied Sciences, and we're running very closely this project together. How this Green Mobility Chain project came about is that there were several challenges of mobility in this region. First of all, the information on how to move around was very scattered. We have challenging weather conditions, obviously 4 seasons, but especially related to water transport. And also there's several different types of transportation in this region. And this information has been fragmented. I have an example of that a little bit later, just to open up this concept where we started from. And the concrete measure is that we will have a digital journey planner with features suitable for this archipelago transport. So here's a view of our beautiful island or archipelago. And I won't go to the online version here, but you can all visit this saaristo.364.fi, and then you can do your own virtual island hopping and see what are we talking about here. From this view, you can't really see all of the islands and how they are related, but I'll show another one. So we have routes that are very popular. The Archipelago Trail route, which lives, you can basically depart anywhere, but for example, departing from Turku and then going clockwise via Parainen and the islands back to Naantali, which is a popular destination in Finland as well, or you can go counterclockwise. And within that, there's obviously opportunities to cut the route somewhere else. And another one which we have in this project is the Small Archipelago route, which cuts from Nauvoo, goes to the island of Saili. But in this picture, you can, if you have a big screen, you can definitely see that we have thousands of islands in here. So the mobility definitely is an issue from the public transportation point of view, especially. So what has been done so far in our project is that there was an initial mapping of, first of all, the pilot routes, and especially from the point of view of the movement. Something that was done was that the analysis was done, first of all, looking at the international solutions, trying to find the best practices. And this journey planner is not anything new for especially our international audience. I'm sure you are more familiar with that than we were here in Finland. But national solutions are offered by Sweden, Resebot, Entur in Norway, or Travelline in the UK, and these were looked into very much. Also in Finland, there was project going on with a similar goal to capture all of the different platforms of tourism and travel. However, there were some changes in the law, and that project didn't really get to its goal due to those changes. Our challenge in this region especially is that we have so many ferry connections, and often they are basically supporting the road network. So there's only a small, instead of the bridge, we have ferries, and those ferries don't always even have a timetable. Some of them are on demand basis, and also for that reason, it's challenging to digitize them in any way. Especially for the waterway traffic solutions, Norway and UK was studied to find how they have solved these challenges. Also, what was found out was that especially where are the gaps, and that's how those pilot routes were chosen and how to improve them. For example, some routes, it was not possible to use a public transportation since there was, for example, a 13-kilometer gap. That's not really something that you can easily walk on a regular basis. So these were found out by the initial research. Also, the operators, those who are operating, for example, buses and others, and the ferry companies, they have done CO2 calculations, and some of them have decided to change to another type of petrol to have greener energy to run their business and run the routes. Also, what has been some increasing during this project is the understanding and also collaboration with, in general, about the smart mobility. What was found out that the journey planner as a concept was not familiar to everybody involved. Also, finding the roles and these local mobility services, and this especially from the tourism point of view. Often these are obviously developed and they should be for local people, but then since we are a popular destination, also to use those ready networks for tourism, that has been something that that discussion has started during this project especially. And of course, because we're not operating in one city or one destination, close collaboration with the visit organizations and the cities, municipalities involved in this route that were chosen for this pilot. Something to also support the services. So if we have this mobility part sorted out, we also have to make sure that our services, tourism services especially, support the green travelers. So one of the things that we have been pushing for is developing services for the bikers, and there's now a Welcome Cyclist brand, which is covering all of Finland with the same brand, and also developing new solutions such as the bike and bus. So one of the companies involved in here, they have ordered a trailer which can take several bikes on it. As this has been one of the challenges as well. We have a lot of bikers, but then you are not able to book the bike on a bus beforehand, or some of the lines may have that opportunity, but also those spaces are limited. So that's also hindering the development of green tourism. And then Clean and Safe Turku sign as well has been developed last year due to the pandemic. And this is something that we are focusing on, making sure that all of these operations that are included in our projects are either part of the Sustainable Travel Finland program, or then also this Clean and Safe Turku, which is providing this confidence for the tourists that we are sustainable and looking after the hygiene aspect of things. So here's an example of the before. So if you wanted to go to the island, to the archipelago, you'd have to go and find out several services. These are just, this is not all of them, just picked up a few samples just to get an idea that to get to Nauru, for example, or one of the further islands, you'd have to find first bus connection, find out which bus is operating connection, for example, from Turku to Nauru. Then how do you want to progress from Nauru onwards? Which kind of ferry, which island you're choosing from there? Do you want to bike some of the way? Do you want to take your bike with you? Then each and every one of these operators would have their own information about biking. Some of them would allow you to book it in advance. Some of them would say, okay, well, if there's space, you can take it with you. Some will have a fee, others will have it for free, and it's very, very cumbersome to plan a journey. So it's really hard work to get access to this beautiful nature by public transportation. So the option obviously was to take your own car, or then if you knew the area, then you would also know how to bike around. So what we have chosen to pilot with is Matkahuolto, which is a national operator of initially from bus traffic, but nowadays they have developed other ways of transportation as well. With this, you can get in one view the route and the timetables. Also the tickets, if whichever operator is responsible for each journey or each leg of the journey, if they have wanted to use the ticketing opportunities through Matkahuolto service, then it would be possible to even buy all of the tickets in one go. what this means now for the waterway. So the bus traffic has been here for a long time. They're looking now to add also the whole national rail ticketing and services in here. It's not live yet, but it's coming in the coming months. But then what it means for the waterways is that now, in addition to seeing the route through the islands, there's also technology following this location ID of the ferry, so you can see 5 minutes before it's arriving to the harbor that whether it's on time or running late, and you can then see it along the way as it is on the route as well. This is not live yet on a live server, but it's being brought at the end of the month or beginning of June. So those pilot routes will be all digitalized and brought onto the same service. So then it allows you to choose whether you want to take a bus to Nauvoo or you want to take a ferry from Turku to Nauvoo directly and spend the journey on the waterways. Some other things that we're also doing is improving the descriptions of these routes to making it easier and for travelers to reach destinations, to understand how these different opportunities to move work. Turku Ute will also be added as the journey to the island. This route consists of a bus from Turku first to Nauvoo, and then this ferry connection, which actually is part of the government-supported sort of a road network, extension of the road network. And what it means is that in order for those people who live on this island, they need to have access to the mainland. So there's a 5-hour boat trip, and because this is part of the public network, it is the free boat trip. This is a very popular destination, and there's obviously concerns for the nature and also from the tourism visitors numbers to the need to manage how many people can get onto the island so that it's still sustainable and the nature is not ruined. But this is not part of the strong part of our project. This is perhaps something that will come in the following project. This water traffic has been available before, but not in the same application. So you would always have to find a different web page or different PDF or a different application to find that information. Another thing that we have done are boosting is for all of those tourism service operators to add their details on OpenStreetMap. It's completely free. They can manage their own details in there, make sure that everything is pointing to the right location. And this way it will not only populate to this Matkahuolto journey planner, which we are piloting, but also to the local the Turku region public transportation map. When we looked at this last fall and even the beginning of this year, there were, for example, in Turku only 3 hotels came up. Then not even all the restaurants. Some of the restaurants are even pointing to far away from the Turku city. So this is also what we are trying to increase is the quality of this information, so that anyone who finds these journey planners can also find those tourist services easily. And of course, it supports the local people as well. As a separate pilot, we also changing a little bit of the way to visit the archipelago. Previously, in addition to those private people traveling with bike or car, there has been tours or buses, but only for groups. So somebody would organize the whole group and then bring them over and visit the archipelago. But now the local visit organization, Visit Naantali, they have created these pilot trips or routes. First one is on 19th of June, and with a little bit of different concepts, each of them. This is available for any independent traveler to book, and it's a ready tour or route organized locally here. So we still have a lot of things to do, but the good thing is that we get this journey planner live. We get to pilot it. We get some initial results because the summer obviously is the key season here, and then hopefully it will also help us develop this seasonality and tourist visits also outside of the peak summer season. But all in all, we have learned about the collaboration and the need of the communication between public and private operators, also among the travel operators and from those service providers also to the guests, to those visitors that are coming. So they need different type of information depending on what they're using as a means of transportation to get to each location. And as said, we're still waiting for the actual results of the project, but so far we are quite pleased with the progress. I think we have a few minutes for questions here, or we'll have a discussion in a few minutes' time.
We will have a discussion in the Q&A session after
Okay, great.
2 other presentations. And I would like to thank you, Hanna, for a really interesting and inspiring presentation. But let me now welcome Mr. Topias Pihlava from the City of Turku on our virtual stage. And we'll hear about the joint tickets and contactless payment in the regional public transport in the Turku area. Welcome.
Well, I'm Topias Pihlava. I come from the City of Turku, from our public transport regions. We are the public transport authority here in the region, and so we basically plan and organize all the public transport traffic here in the region. And here are 6 different municipalities which are in together this organization. So we plan and organize all the traffic here. So, but today I'm gonna present something about our joint tickets and our contactless payment. We have had ID-based ticketing system in production since 2016. So we have already 5 years experience of having ID-based ticketing, which means that everything is every travel rights are stored in our back office, and nothing is stored in our cards anymore. And that gives us some flexibility to create different kind of products later on in the system. It basically means we are our ticket management is easy and simple. We can create tickets and validities much more easily. We can change the validities. We can add different fare medias to the system much more easily. We can do different school cards much more easily and bigger amount of tickets easily. We can provide online loading service for the customer, so they can charge the travel cards online. We can expand the system much more easily, such as different barcodes or even tickets or joint tickets, and so on. And we are having an API for third parties that they can get our tickets through the API and resell them on their channels, and maybe do some kind of mobility as a service by combining different tickets in their services. And what we actually have done so far, for example, different event tickets, we have as we can print different barcodes from our system and do a ticket for a certain time quite easily. And so we can do this kind of mass production tickets. For example, here are badge and brackets from couple of events where we actually printed some thousands of these for the organizer, and the organizer give this to the attendancy of these events. And by showing these barcodes on the public transport when they hop hop on board to the buses, they validate the tickets directly on our validators. So it's much more easier to create large number of different tickets for large amounts. Then we are having a collaboration with Lippupiste. Lippupiste is a ticket organization. So if organization wants to resell tickets, usually they use some kind of Lippupiste to resell the tickets, and we have made an interface with them that we can include our public transport ticket to the event ticket itself. And for the customer, it basically means that the customer shows exactly the same barcode which is used for the event to entrance the event. They show the same barcode for our readers on buses, and the travel rights are stored in buses. So it means that the Lippupiste ticket provider, they are having an API where they provide all the ticket IDs which is sold to that specific event. They deliver them to our system, and then we create a travel right for this ticket during the event time. So for example, in our case, the ticket is valid 3 hours before the event and 2 hours after the event. It means that the customer can come to the theater, for example. It's included in the theater ticket. They can use the same ticket in our buses as well, and they can then, after the event, they can leave and go back with the same ticket. And it's in our case, our theater has been providing this for their customer. So and that feedback from the customer has been actually very nice. And the benefits, of course, for the organizer is that they don't need to care about parking places and so on, and of course probably it's much more less stressful for the customer to come by public transport rather than thinking about parking places and so on. So this is also a benefit for having ID-based system and using different APIs. You can create and add different fare medias easily to the system. Then we have open sales channels, like I mentioned, for third parties. They can resell our tickets. One example is our national railways. So if you are purchasing train tickets to or from Turku, it automatically suggests you that maybe you should buy a single ticket for public transport as well at the same time. And if you choose to buy it, then you can get the barcode directly on your train ticket, and you can board the buses with our tickets. So it's easy for the customer to buy this travel chain. Then we just recently launched contactless payment, which means you can pay with a debit or credit card on our traffic. It started on January this year, and from customer feedback, this has been the best reform for a long time, and we have done quite many things during the past year. So I think this is a good example that the customers are liking this. It basically this is based on the Visas and MasterCard rules, like you probably know from some bigger cities such as London. So you can just show your credit or debit card directly to the validators, and then we are calculating your travels and charging directly from your credit cards. And there is no PIN code required on these payments, never.
Tobias, I'm sorry to disturb you, but
yes, sure.
3 minutes left. Then we have
Yes,
to jump onto another
yes.
presentation. Thank you.
Yes, so basically we are, like I mentioned, we are capping the fare, so the travelers, they don't need to worry about what kind of tickets they need. They just board the bus and we calculate the best price for them. So it's the same kind of pay-as-you-go model as in other cities. Our main message in this is that spontaneous travel is now easy, and everybody is having a bus card from now on. So as our main goal with all the joint tickets, we would like to make the traveling as easy as possible, and all our joint tickets are heading to that. So as a summary or a lesson learned, when you are having a flexible ID-based ticketing, that's the basis of all these kind of joint tickets, and maybe developing the system and services further. Thank you.
Thank you, Tobias. That was very good presentation into what Poly does in Turku. But let me now invite Mr. Teemu Peltonen and Mr. Juha Pulmoranta from the City of Turku on the virtual stage, and they will explore how parking data can be better utilized in parking management. So the floor is yours.
So let's begin. Today our topic is smart parking in the city of Turku, and we are presenting the opportunities for co-innovations in the parking scene. Firstly, we have some challenges here in Turku. The city is very old, and for that reason the building base is also very old, from the era that there was no requirement to build parking places on properties. So a lot of parking is on the streets, also, and it's for both business and inhabitants that need the parking space on the streets. When we are facing the parking system, we must also consider the traffic laws and other legislation. Sorry. And city parking policy and all kinds of parking guidance, both digital and traditional. And then there are these new solutions that we are trying to investigate, that what could be used. And we are focusing on the data-oriented scene, where this analysis with the data can lead to better decision making. We get the full digital image of the parking. We can follow real time all the parking incomes and parking states, and there are also needs for the parking control for digitalized, quickly accessible data. The first step in our process is getting the parking hub online. It's basically a general real-time parking data storage. We are using an open source platform. It is available in the GitHub. And we are, of course, considering the GDPR. And with the data that we are collecting, we can present the parking space occupancy, and we are sharing it as open data. At the moment, this is still ongoing setup, so this is not available, but will be in the near oncoming months. We also are building all kinds of other digital resources for parking. So we are bringing to the city guide map on street parking spaces, parking feed zones and other parking zone information, residential parking zones, parking meters, and so on and so on. So there is quite a lot of parking related data coming up. Here's a picture how the parking hub works. So basically it collects all kinds of parking data from mobile pay operators to parking meters to possible IoT solutions. And also the parking control data is collected and parking permits data and so on. And it is shared out. We get data, we can make statistics, we can share it to some map solutions, mobile solutions. We are sharing it as open data. And of course, the parking control uses the data for daily operations, checking if payments are on and or either the parking permits for the car is available and so on. Then as we get the first stages done, we get the system running. Where will we go next? There are ideas bringing mass combinations, so we could build real-time traffic guidance systems, and we could in real time show empty parking spaces and guide people to those. Using IoT and machine vision integrations and using also machine learning, combining different data sets related to parking in a more efficient way. And with all these, as we get the parking image as a more real time, we can get systems like dynamic parking fees and traffic and parking routing. Here's a little something about the whole system image. So we have the parking hub, but there are also other parking needs. For example, the permits, we need a different service for that, and the permit service only it is used to handling the permits, and then we are directing the information to the parking hub with. And then there's the parking control needs that uses parking hub, and all this data after it's collected is shared as an open data and can be used to build services. It's both city can build services, but the open data can be used by anyone to make their own business and build their own services from that. So Juha will be presenting what kind of solutions can be done with the data available.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Juha Pulmuranta, as Teemu mentioned, and I'm the project manager in a project called Low Carbon Transport in Mobility Hubs. And in this second part of our shared presentation, I will tell you about co-innovation with companies and especially related to parking companies this time. So in these Kuusi Aika 6 City projects, the idea is to offer city as a platform for new services, and I guess that's the case in most projects nowadays. So what we do simply is we collect the needs of the citizens and other stakeholders, and we open up the public data, and then we cooperate with the cities and our other stakeholders to find the best solutions for the challenges we have identified. Teemu, I think you changed the slide. Thank you. Yes, so that's the setting for these projects. Teemu, are you looking for something or? Is your computer doing something on its own?
Okay, Teemu, can you change the slide?
Teemu,
The
I
back
think
marks.
this is still the wrong slide, so the first one of my section. That's it. Thanks. So what we do is we will pilot the new solutions from 3 to 6 months with companies, and we will, as a city, we will support these pilots by facilitating and marketing them, collecting feedback, evaluating, and so on. And at the moment, we are making preparations for the pilots, which will then take place from June to November. And what we have done here is we have collected or identified about 150 user stories during the last 2 years. And then based on those needs, we asked different parking companies, parking operators to pitch their solution to these challenges about a year ago in order to learn about markets and their capabilities. And late last year, we started public procurement based on the market dialogue, and what we got was 25 pilot proposals by 16 companies. And at the end of this procurement, we decided to pay for 8 parking pilots, and each will cost 10,000 euros. And then in addition to these pilots, there was one pilot that will be running free of costs, as it's a startup that hasn't a business ID yet. So this was a win-win situation both for them and for us. And what we have done for the last 2 months is all about preparations, making preparations for these pilots. And next I'm going to briefly tell you about all these pilots, but as you can see, there are many pilots related to the same topics. So the first topic is easy on-street parking, and 3 pilots will take place on this topic. And as you can see, there are 3 different partners, and the aim is simply to learn how this kind of new technology can help to reduce unnecessary driving when looking for a parking space in the city center. And a solution here is to show the real-time availability of the monitored parking spaces using cameras, machine vision, and mobile application. And we are going to pilot this with companies in central locations in the city of Turku and using partially different technological solutions. And as these pilots provide data, also on-street information sign is also an option in the future. So that's one topic, and then moving on to parking guidance, and 2 pilots will take place under this title. So the aim here is to learn how we could help drivers to navigate to the destination's nearest car park, whether it's on or off street. And another point of view here is that business owners in the city center will get a chance to better guide their customers by embedding the information to their website, so their customers can see where to park. That's the main idea here. And solution here is a bit more detailed. So in the previous slide, we could show there are 4 different sources for the data, and I'm sure you will get all this information afterwards, so I will not go through all these, but there are many sources where the data is gathered, and the end user, the driver in this case, will see this information on his mobile phone via an app, and Google Maps integration will then help people to navigate to the nearest car park. So that was our second topic, and then another topic is about parking guidance in major events, and the difference here to the previous topic is that now we talk about temporary car parks which are set up during the major events such as tall ships races in Turku. And idea is to make people use these remote parking areas and shuttles, and hence reduce the traffic to the venue. And the pilot will consist of two parts. The first part is the web interface to the volunteers who monitor the status of each temporary car park and then update the status regularly. And the second part of this pilot or service is web interface for the visitors who will see the status of every temporary car park on a map. And the service, I have had to update this slide a bit for the obvious reasons. So the service will hopefully be tested in Tall Ships Races event, as for example, Ruisrock has been cancelled. And then book a parking space. Booking a parking space is a pilot where two companies will test how this kind of pre-booking of a parking space will work and what kind of communication is needed to avoid parking violations and confusion. And aim here is also to reduce unnecessary driving. And in gradient intelligence case, the solution will include a mobile app where you can check the status of two parking spaces in Aurakatu 2, which is the yard of the city council, so the very central position in or location in Turku. And the status of the parking space or these two parking spaces will be free or reserved. And if the space is available, driver can book it to himself or herself by using his registration plate. And solution uses cameras and machine vision, and with API it can also be integrated to third-party apps such as EasyPark or Parkman and so on. And what they have done here, or what they will do here, is that they will indicate the status of these parking spaces with LED sign, which you can see here. So it doesn't, it's not much different from the traditional signs, but I think when you see it on street or on site, you will see the difference more clearly. And of course, this previous pilot will be conducted in close cooperation with parking control. And then we have a pilot about ride sharing. This is the pilot that will take place in autumn. It will start, well, not until August. So we haven't yet planned it in detail, but the idea here is to get more people to use ride sharing in their daily commute, and the solution will include a mobile app which provides people a contact point. Contact point to people who share the same destination or want to share the costs of driving or need a ride. And City's role here is to indicate so-called high occupancy vehicle parking spaces on street, and maybe also introduce an incentive providing users a discount for parking payment in these designated spaces. And there are many things to consider here in this pilot, and also cooperation with parking control will be needed. And as I said, the parking pilot will start in August, so then we will know more. And then coming to the end of this section is that there's peer-to-peer renting of parking spaces, and just a second, my kids brought me some tea, so thanks for that. Kiitoksia lapset. But going back to the presentation, aim here is to enable short-term renting of privately owned parking spaces, and of course to reduce this unnecessary driving again. And the solution here is based on a need that housing companies, businesses, and individuals have occasionally vacant parking spaces. And according to City Survey, which was done about 2 years ago, 1/3 of inhabitants could consider renting their own parking space. And partners, well, this Shareway and eParkly will provide a solution where all the private stakeholders can join and rent their parking spaces for the duration they want. And the benefit for the parking space owner is that they can get some income from this pilot and this service. And there are some preconditions for the parking space, so it should be easily accessible, meaning there can be no gates. And of course, a close cooperation with private parking control will be needed. And the last one of the pilots is related to city center traffic heat map. And idea here is to support data-driven decision making. And the pilot will provide the city with data visualizations, such as one here, an example from Helsinki. And they will also facilitate workshop based on these visualizations, and finally come up with supplementary infographics based on this cooperation with key stakeholders. And the aim is to also to use this data visualization to boost sustainable mobility in the city of Turku. Now that's all about our pilots, and I'm giving the floor back to Teemu.
Thank you, Juha. Here are some other ongoing programs that are related to the traffic and mobility, but I won't be going into deeper detail on them. But what is next is the big questions. We have been looking into other solutions also, where we can get new data, what we can do next to improve traffic, the parking, the mobility in the city of Turku. And we are looking into new data sources. We are trying to figure out how we could use IoT, machine learning, satellite images, drones for traffic evaluations, how the smart cars data could be used. Autonomous buses, cars are also on the table. And if you have any solutions, bring the ideas. We are happy to hear about them. As you vote, I can go on with the presentation because we are a little short on time. It's actually Juha's turn to maybe say a few words about the results.
Yes, I can go on with this. So what we expect to be the results of these pilots. So of course we aim to get new mobility services to Turku with strong business models. And we also would like to or hope to get information on the potential of new technology in terms of how it can support the low carbon transport. And we will also get plenty of data, as these, in addition to city data, these pilots will create data which can be then used in city services, but also in third-party apps. And these piloting companies will also cooperate together and share the data to each other as well. And at the end of the project, this autumn, we will focus on scaling up these new services to other areas and cities. For example, within the project area, which is which consists of 4 different cities in Finland. So some of the learnings we have had, I think the first one was yours.
Yes, so about gathering data and using the data, what we have learned is that decision making based on data is valued very highly, but in most cases, even when we have the data, it's pretty unusable. It's fragmented. It's in different services, in different devices. There is no general vision on the data. It had to be collected from places to places, combine it in some Excel sheet and trying to use it. So collecting it in one general place will help this fragmentation a lot. And it's also will be in very easily accessible format for the decision making.
Okay, and another learning is that the evaluation is hard work, and actually this is we haven't actually even started it yet, because these pilots will take place will start in the beginning of June, but we have been already doing some work to prepare for collecting feedback and following or monitoring the usage of these new services. And we have set up the like a system how to evaluate all these pilots, and it's hard work. But the next work, I think, has been even harder. So communication. There are so many stakeholders, different parties to take into account, that I think we could like only focus on communication, and that would be enough to take all the time we have. But this is something that is well, here is very important to cooperate with the city's communications unit at least. And of course, there's always something which is even harder, and in this case, it's facilitation. I think the last 2 months we have focused on this solely. So we have had to choose these locations, make sure that the cameras, for example, get electricity. We have had to apply for permits for these, well, at least some of the pilots. We have to ensure that data is available and easily accessible. There have been, or there will be some changes to traffic signs, which also require permits. We have had to contact property owners and managers, and yeah, it has been harder than I thought, and there's so much uncertainty, at least regarding the timetable, and amount of details is also big. But the last key learning is something that I think at least has helped us during this project. So I think we have managed to engage the right people in the city, and also in other stakeholders as well. And also these online platforms have helped us to work more efficiently, and also to, well, it has been, the last year has been a big step forward in terms of digital working methods. So I think these were the key learnings we have had so far, and if you have something to ask, we will be happy to answer you. So thank you.
So let me welcome Ms. Karen van der Linde from Hamburger Hochbahn AG and Ms. Heike Bunte from the City of Hamburg to share their insights about the last mile solutions. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Can you already see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Heike, would you like to start with some sentence, or should I?
I think in terms of the time, just go right now. Hello, everybody from Hamburg Altona. I'm responsible here for the HUPMOBILE project, but I'm happy that Karen will show us now the real lab from the city center. So go on, please. Thanks.
Thank you. So good morning from Hamburg, and from my side, and a warm welcome. My name is Karen. I'm an innovation manager at the HUPMOBILE, the public transport company here in Hamburg, and I'm very pleased to be able to give you a few insights into one of my current projects, so the micro depot, which we are currently testing. So what can you expect the next 10 minutes? Let's start with a quick introduction to our company, and then move on to the topic of public transport and logistics. And then I will give you the insights of the micro depot. So let's start with the Hamburger Hochbahn. The Hamburger Hochbahn is the largest public transport operator in Hamburg. It's a city in the north of Germany, and we convey over 1 million passengers a day. I mean, at least pre-corona level. And we do have over 100 bus lines, 7 subway lines, and 7 ferry lines. And the Hochbahn understands itself more than a transport company, and we are above all a mover for future mobility. And in the end, we would like to increase the quality of life throughout the city in Hamburg, and therefore, of course, be part of the mobility in Hamburg. Let's move on to the topic of public transport, because now I would like to give you some background information and insights into our strategy in order to be able to answer the, of course, legitimate question: what does public transport have to do with the subject of logistics? And therefore, I would like to give you just a short view on this, because we can ask if the mobility of people and goods is so far apart. And if we look at the volume development and the forecast, then we can see that the great growth is for both. And the question, of course, arises how to cope with these volumes with the same amount of spaces in the city. And lowering together our vision, and if you think about it more consistently, then the sustainability of the city includes not only the mobility of people, but of course also the mobility of goods. And again, the question why the Hochbahn as a public transport operator is taking part in these topics of urban logistics. And that's why we identify and use synergy effects of passengers and goods transport for city-friendly mobility. And yes, we would like to generate added value, because as a public transport company, that is also, of course, part of our job, and added value for the city and for the customer, so for the passengers in our system and those that will be there in the future. And why do we think that we can offer these values is because we have identified 3 essential assets that we can bring in. That is the infrastructure, of course, I mean, due to our mobility services, and the frequency. I mean, just I have mentioned that we do have 1 million passengers, and the neutrality, because we are the partner of the city, and therefore we think that we could, yes, do this job. So next thing is, let's move to the Real Lab. And the Real Labor Hamburg is, yes, a kind of mobility of tomorrow is to be tested. And there's now, yes, we were to do this living lab for the digital mobility of the future. And we as the Hochbahn are the consortial partner. And we do have 11 sub-projects, and we do have funding by the Ministry of 20 million for all these 11 projects. And just go very quickly through the aims of this Real Lab is that we would like to improve the mobility through digitalization, optimization, and we would like to see which projects can be able to do in the future, and therefore would like to test them in these 2 years funding project, and at the end be able to see if these are future-oriented mobility projects or not. Here you can see some of the projects, and the planned 11 sub-projects range from a mobility budget instead of a car to the creation of a provider-independent mobility platform. And one of these sub-projects is the micro depot. And now I would like to give you some insights into the micro depot. So let's move on. So what do we understand by micro hub? And for us, a micro hub is a central point of good turnover. So that means that the carrier will bring the goods from the depot in the surrounding area to the centrally located micro depot, handling of goods, and then find distribution with cargo bikes to the end consumer, so B2B and also B2C. And why we try at least to have an emission-free delivery chain, the whole chain. And what are the goals of the micro hub? So the aim is to optimize the process of inner city delivery through the joint use of the transshipment points, so the so-called micro depots, while maintaining an emission-free supply chains, as I told you. And of course, the emission-free delivery, as well as the bundling in the micro depot and the subsequent fine distribution, should then make, of course, a significant contribution to the reduction of emissions and relieving the traffic as a whole. So, and moreover, we like to reduce the conflicts of use in the street spaces, and of course, thereby through the shared use and the cross-provider permission of the micro hub, the shipment can be bundled more, and the logistics service providers and the regional retailers can then achieve efficiency increases in their delivery process. So let's see who takes part in the micro hub. We do have some parcel services with Hermes, UPS, and DHL. I mean, at least in Germany, you might know them. And we also do have a food retailer, a quite big one here, using the micro hub. We do have 2 founding bodies here, one regional and one national, which take part in this project. And just very brief, some impressions of the micro hub. So we do have a really inner city located micro hub, which is really good. You can see here on the screen, it is quite to the central station, and here you can see the outside view of the micro depot. And we also are able to dedicate paying parking spaces into delivery zones. So that is really useful for the delivery process in the morning. And here you can see the inner view. Before we do have the conversion measures, we do have floor reinforcement, electricity, and some new walls. And on the right picture, you can see after the conversion measures. And here you can also see some inside views and one of the bikes. And this is some impression of the press photos we have taken. And here you can see that we do have now some compartments in the micro depot where every partner has his own department for the parcels, and then they use together all the floor for the bikes. And just last week we have started operation our second micro hub, which you can see on this picture, and this is located in our central bus station, and it is focusing more on startups. So and then the last thing, where the journey will lead. So of course we do have the evaluation, and so the scaling the results from the conception and operation of the pilot and then transferring them into other cities, and the continuation, of course. So we would like to continue the operation and further expand the micro depots in Hamburg. Of course, then using a sustainable or a suitable business model and see how it will work in the future. So that was my very fast overview about the micro depot. I hope you could follow, and yeah, thank you for your attention.
All right, would Heike like to say a couple of words as well, or do we continue?
I think we should continue in terms of
All right.
the time, it's better. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Karen and Heike from Hamburg's case. And let me now welcome Ms. Amita Singh from KTH Royal Institute of Technology to introduce how a simulation tool under development in the HUPMOBILE project could help decision makers make better decisions when it comes to mobility planning in the port cities. Welcome, Amita. The floor is yours.
So, hello and welcome. My name is Amita Singh. I am a PhD candidate at KTH Royal Institute of Technology, and I'm here today to talk about using simulation for improving urban mobility, taking a case example of Hamburg. So, growing urbanization has led to increase. Okay. So, growing urbanization has led to increased population mobility, leading to a surge in the number of vehicles on roads. So according to UN reports, 54% of the world's population is now living in cities. And by 2050, 66% of the world's population would be living in cities. So this growing motorization has social, environmental, and economic costs attached to it. So on-road vehicles cause around 27% of the greenhouse emissions. So we know with growing urbanization and growing mobility and motorization, we have a certain problem at hand. So we want to solve it in a sustainable way. How do we solve it in a sustainable way? So we use something called sustainable urban mobility planning, SUMP. So what is SUMP? SUMP is, according to European platform, SUMP is a transport planning approach that is designed to satisfy the needs of the businesses and persons in the urban areas and peri-urban areas. So it ensures transport services to key destinations for all residents. It ensures reduction in pollution, that is greenhouse emissions and noise pollution, and also reduction in energy consumption. It ensures cost-effectiveness in transport and makes it economical. It ensures better safety and security for the transportation, and it also helps in holistic urban development. So next, now we know that we have a problem at hand. We want to solve it in a sustainable way. So next, what are the tools we have in order to solve this problem? So let's look at the tools. So we are using here simulation as a tool to solve this problem of urban mobility and the problem of growing motorization. So why are we using simulation in traffic management? First, simulation is cheap. So that is in vivo experiments are difficult. So in real life experiments are difficult. So we are doing in silico experiments. So the experiments on computers and creating different what-if scenarios. So it is much cheaper than doing it in real life. Then we can explore more trade-offs. So there are different trade-offs. There can be a group of stakeholders which has focused on environmentally sustainable solutions. They can be another group of stakeholders who are looking at economically viable solutions. So we can explore different trade-offs with simulations and what-if scenarios. We can also encourage larger participation. That is, we can bring different stakeholders and a large number of stakeholders to the table and facilitate the discussion wherein we can say that what-if scenarios we can create with the help of simulations, and it does encourage larger participation. Now we know that we have a problem. We want to solve it in a sustainable way, and we are using simulation as our tool. So now let's look at the problem of traffic management and how simulation helps in solving that problem. So what is traffic? Traffic is basically consists of different components, that is cyclists, zebra crossings, traffic light systems, public transports, pedestrians, motorized traffic, etc. And how simulation helps in mapping all these characteristics of all the components. That is, the cyclists can be of different speeds, pedestrians can be of different speeds, traffic light system can be of different duration of the control phases that they have, and the motorized vehicle could be of different types. So simulation helps in mapping all these characteristics of different components in a what if scenario. So we can tune and manipulate different scenarios and look at how the output is changing. So next, if we have looked at different components of traffic, now we say we want to focus at one component of traffic. This one component of traffic is going to be traffic light in this case, because it affects all participants and it helps in reducing, if programmed in an optimized way, it helps in reducing greenhouse emissions. So we have chosen traffic light system to be the component that we want to simulate. So now we have a problem at hand. We looked at the traffic. Now we looked at which component we want to work with. Now we want a simulator. So the simulator is which simulator do we need? So we need a simulator that can help in determining the greenhouse emissions. So, we take Sumo, simulation of urban mobility, as software that is helping in determining of greenhouse emissions. It can import the map of a city and help in understanding the different cost factors like fuel, electricity used, etc., and different environmental factors. So that way it helps. And it's an open source software, so that is an advantage from Sumo. It's a traffic simulator. We can import the complete traffic, complete city map into Sumo. So it's easier, it's highly portable, it's microscopic and continuous with a time step of 1 second. It also, in addition, has different Python scripts that additional helper Python scripts that can help in making the simulation better. So now we know which simulation software we are going to use. Now let's look at this problem from a problem that we want to solve. So there's taking a case example from Hamburg. What is the simulation aim here? The simulation aim for traffic light modeling is on a particular road. This road is of 2 kilometer stretch, and we want to create a greenway for cyclists. And we want to look at the 3 different phases, 3 different factors, how it will be affected. So how the traffic light phases will be affected first. Second is what would be the impact of greenway for cyclists on motorized vehicles. Third is what would be the impact of traffic bus line schedule on line 180. So these are the 3 different factors that we want to look through what if scenarios in simulation. Now we have a simulation aim at hand. Let's look at what inputs we need. So first we need aggregated traffic data. That is, in Sumo we have a map as a graph. The graph consists of nodes and edges. So say from node A to node B, n number of vehicles are moving, and from B to A in the reverse direction, n number of vehicles are moving, and what is the vehicle type of a particular vehicle. So this is how with the different vehicles we are moving in A to B and B to A direction, and that's how the whole map is made. The how many vehicles are traversing in each direction and in the reverse direction. So this is the first input we have. Second input we have is the existing traffic light phases. So that is we have all the traffic links that joins the different roads, and we have the traffic light duration. So we have each state of the traffic light, and we say what is the duration of the control phase. So we know what are the existing control phases of the traffic light durations are. Next, we look at what is the public transport schedule. So Sumo has another characteristic that we can import public transportation in Sumo. So the schedule of public transportation. So we are looking at, we talked about bus number 180, which is traversing that area during where we are trying to create greenway for cyclists. So in this case, we have imported the schedule and bus stops for 30 seconds at each stop, and for boarding and deboarding of passengers. And this is the schedule that we have imported. This is like the bus stop. We'll talk about the stop of the simulation later. Next, we say that we have collected all the inputs. We have the aim of the simulation. We have collected all the inputs. Now we look at how to create step-by-step the simulation itself. So first, in the first step, we say that we collect all objectives from all stakeholders. So stakeholder objectives could be competing or could be inline. So we say that there can be, the example that I took earlier, that there can be environmentally sustainable focusing stakeholders, whereas there can be stakeholders who are looking at economically viable options as well. So different stakeholders competing or inline, we take the objectives from them and create our objective function. So first we have created our objective function, and then we are looking at data collection. So depending on the objective function, what we want to do, we collect data. That is the OpenStreetMap that we are importing in order to get the graph of the city, or traffic light data that we talked about earlier, historical data, or aggregated vehicle data, etc. So we collect in the second step, we collect the data. In the third step, this data goes as input to the Sumo simulation. And we look at the traffic demand modeling, which also goes as input to the Sumo simulation. This traffic demand modeling has pedestrians, cyclists, public transport, and other motorized vehicles. And this goes as input to the Sumo simulation as well, together with the data collection that we have, the data that we have collected so far. So now we verify the model that it does what it's supposed to do. Second, then we run the simulation and create a log file. So this log file is in XML. So we post-process the log file in order to get the different visualizations. These visualizations then can be different competing factors that we are trying to make the trade-off from, or this can be the different pollutant emissions, or different the fuel consumption and these things. And these help the stakeholders in making decisions and making iterations over the what if scenarios. And it also helps in the validation of the model. So next, we saw how to create step-by-step the simulation building, model building. Now we look at the snapshot of a simulation. So here is how a simulation looks like. It has a traffic light system. It has motorized vehicles, cyclists, bus transport. This is bus number 180 that is traversing that area. And this is a bus stop that the bus halts at. And these are the detectors. So the detectors are basically used in order to give priority to a certain vehicle. So for example, if we want to give priority to, say, bus number 180, so this is the bus number 180. If we want to give priority to this bus, then we say that whenever the bus passes this detector, the traffic light in front of it turns green. So we program it in such a way that it turns green. So this is a snapshot of how a simulation looks like. And then these are the results. So what we did, it's a sample result. That what we did is we ran 250 simulations, and these are the axes of each point corresponds to each simulation with the different control phases of the traffic light. So we say that we are manipulating the traffic light in order to get a green wave for cyclists, and then we are looking at different results. So this is the bus waiting time, this is the motorized vehicle waiting time, and this is the bike waiting time. And since we want to create green wave for cyclists, we say that this is the least time that we want to, that cyclists are taking. So this is 102 seconds. And what are the corresponding points for bus number 180 and motorized vehicles? and what is the CO2 produced in this scenario. So this is a quick summary of how simulation can help in improving urban mobility planning. And thank you. I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you, Amita. And now we're off to our last presentation of the webinar. Let me welcome Mr. Jere Sipponen from City of Turku and Ms. Noora Salmela from Turku University of Applied Sciences to tell us a little bit about bicycle parking developments in the City of Turku. Welcome.
And I work as a project officer in the City of Turku. So today, me and Noora Salmela from the Turku University of Applied Sciences are going to tell you about the bicycle parking system in the City of Turku and also the upcoming bicycle parking pilots. But first, I'll just mention what the City of Turku Vision 2029 is. So the Turku wants to be an interesting and boldly renewing European university and cultural city where it's good to live and succeed together. Yes, and next I will tell you about the starting point for the mapping out current bike stations in Turku city region. So the city hasn't had a wider picture where the city's bicycle parking stations are located and how these stations look like. There wasn't one platform for this kind of data before, so the base data had to be collected from the different sources. And so if we want to develop the bicycle parking in the city, we have to know the current situation first. And in this slide, here you can see the bicycle parking stations on the map before the mapping and inventory has been done. So as you can see, there is not so much information for the user at this point. But we will get back to current situation a few slides after. So here are the goals for this bicycle parking inventory project. First, we wanted to check and supplement the data for the already known stations. Then we want to add the missing bicycle parking stations to the map. And the last one, we want to add the quality levels 1 to 3 to stations. And here are these 3 quality levels. So the quality level 1 means a station which is sheltered, and there is also a possibility to lock the bike from the frame. Quality level 2 means a station where is a possibility to lock the bike from the frame. And the level 3 means a station where there is no possibility to lock the bike from the frame, but it might be sheltered or not. And this came from the Turku Bicycle Parking Master Plan for 2016. And here are the examples of the 3 quality levels. And on the left, you can see the station that has quality level 1. And in the middle of the slide, you can see the quality level 2 station. And on the right side, you can see the quality level 3 station. And next, I will tell you a bit about the mapping process. So the first step was mapping the stations by walking around the city. Next, we added the locations to the map with QGIS spatial data program. And then we updated the data to the attribute table. After that, we sent ready material to the maintenance unit and the spatial data unit for further processing. And here is the link where you can find all the stations if you want. So here are the current situation of bike stations. So you can find the information about the station. For example, if station is sheltered or no. the station's quality level and also the bicycle storage capacity. So there is much more information now than it was when the mapping wasn't done before. And here we are, the numbers of the overall amount of the stations. We have 46 stations, quality 1 level stations, we have 6, quality level 2 stations, we have 29, and quality level 3 stations, we have 11. And the last, I will show you the notes for the future. When installing new stations, the information should be updated in the register and in the open interface as soon as possible to keep the data up to date. And also a picture of the station would be a good addition with the other information of the station. Yes, thank you from my part. And next, Nora will tell you about the bicycle parking pilots.
Yes, hello everyone. So I will tell you about the bicycle parking pilots that we implement as a part of a project called Low Carbon Mobility in Mobility Hubs. That's funded by European Regional Development Fund, and I come from Turku University of Applied Sciences, but in this project we have partners also the City of Turku, Espoo and Oulu, as well as Business Tampere. And why we do these pilots? So the idea is to try new services in an urban environment. So the idea is to see what works and what does not work. And collecting feedback from the pilots, that's very important because we want to know how the users find the services. And we also collect feedback from the companies that implement these pilots. And based on these pilots, the companies may develop market-based services. And the aim of these pilots is that there will be continuation for the piloted services. You can change the slide. Yeah. So our theme for the pilots in Turku University of Applied Sciences is bicycle parking. And the background for the theme is the importance of supporting sustainable mobility and cycling. And the aim is that the pilots are bicycle parking that is safe, high quality, and easy to use. And we have developed these pilots in stakeholder cooperation. We have organized workshops where participants told their views, how they would like to see these bicycle parking pilots to be, and we have communicated with different stakeholders. Then we've made reports and surveys. We made a survey on bicycle parking. That's continuation to the City of Turku's work that Jere just told you about. But in the University of Applied Sciences, we investigated the bike parks in private lands in the City of Turku, and also this kind of conglomerations that mean the places where bikes are parked, but there are no bicycle racks. Then we have also done actually there was a thesis made by Muska Mäki on additional services for bicycle parking. Then we have done surveys on willingness to pay for bicycle parking. Then you can change the slide, thanks. Yes, so now I will tell about the upcoming pilots in Turku. So the pilot themes, one of them is safe bicycle parking. That this pilot is done in Kupittaa in Turku. It is parking indoors, actually in a sort of container. So it's a small indoor place where a limited amount of bikes can be parked. The service works 24/7. It is a mobile service. It includes, in addition to the bike parking, it includes additional services that are e-bike battery charge, safe deposit box, and independent bike maintenance set. So the idea of this pilot is to find out if people are willing to use and also pay for this kind of a service. In this pilot, the price is very cheap. And this kind of pilot maybe will also be in the Turku center or in summer events, but that we don't know yet if there will be more pilots, but probably some. And other theme for the pilot is bicycle parking surveillance. That is like real-time surveillance, and the idea is mainly to see how full some of the busy parking places are. These pilots take place during the time between May and September. This first one in Kupittaa, it will start very soon. Our project that I mentioned in the beginning, it funds 2 of these pilots, and the City of Turku funds other pilots by other projects. You can change the slide. Thanks. So now I come to the lessons learned. So who pays for bicycle parking? Well, what we have learned is that free, good quality parking needs to be the priority, of course. So this is just like additional service, this parking that might even cost something. And people are not used to pay for bicycle parking in Finland. And if this kind of service is provided, it needs to be safe, like really safe, easy to use, and include some additional services. And what we know on these additional services is that based on our investigations and surveys, the most popular additional services in Turku are bike maintenance, mainly independent maintenance. Like there is, when you go to the parking, there is like some kind of maintenance set available. Also, very popular additional services are bike wash, that you can wash your bike somewhere near the parking. Also e-bike charge and safe deposit box for personal belongings. And these lessons learned are to be continued, because we will learn more lessons from the feedback that we get from the pilots. Like I said, these pilots have not yet started actually, but they will start very soon. So we get a lot of learnings from there. I think you can put the next slide. So I will thank you for your attention.
Yes, thank you for my side. I forget Nora's information about you, but
no problem.
But Nora will send you if you want.
All right. Thank you, Nora and Jere. And I highly encourage everyone participating in this webinar to reach out to our presenters if you have any additional questions or if you'd like to know more. We will also be sending out the webinar materials to all of you after the webinar next week, the latest. And let's now continue to our question and answer session. I will read out the questions from our Q&A box. And first question will be addressed to Hanna. And let me ask you quickly here are the different services of the archipelago going to be mapped to the journey planner as well? And how is that information about services collected in your case?
So first of all, the services, we are in constant communication with the region's travel companies, and we're supporting them, telling them of this opportunity. Of course, it's up to each company to decide if they want to go and update the information. But as the OpenStreetMap, anybody could go and enter the data. So we support, like, encourage them to go and check their own data to make sure it is accurate. So they will then automatically come to this platform. The reason this is a 2-year project, so there was no need to start creating our own app for this purpose and for this region. We have a lot of domestic visitors as well, so this will support their ability to find their way, their route all the way from, for example, Helsinki or further up in the north, to find a sustainable or public transportation to the archipelago. So we want to make sure that this continues even after the project finishes in August. And that's
Okay.
that's the choice for the platform of Matkahuolto.
All right, that sounds really good. Thank you, Hannah, for the answer. Now let's move on to Tobias. And I'd like to know, what kind of feedback have you received from the client regarding the joint ticketing system? We heard in your presentation that people have been really happy about it, but was that the only type of feedback, or did you get some concrete examples of what to improve, or is everything okay as it is?
Yeah, I think the feedback has been very great, and people have really loved this. Of course, most of them are free of charge from them, but of course, if there is some technical problems, then they usually are not satisfied, and we will have to investigate what causes these kind of errors. But luckily, there hasn't been that many. But in general, the feedback is very, very positive. All
right, that's good to know. And now we move on to Teemu and Juha's presentation. And the question is that, does each of the pilots have their own app, or will there be a collective joint app developed in the future?
Thank you for the question. I can take this one. So each of the pilot will have their own application. Since it is much, I think, easier that way, and as we don't know which of the pilots will continue after the pilot period, then it's after that we will have to look if there's a chance to somehow combine them, or I think they will also companies will cooperate anyhow and look for synergies. So I think we just City acts as a platform in this way as well. So companies can operate and do as they want and as they see most beneficial for them.
All right, good. Okay, and let's move on to Karen. And Karen, there's a question about competitors. Did you experience any problems to get competitors to work in the same space for the mini hubs?
Yes, definitely. So that was a big challenge to bring together these different parcel services, because of course there are we have a high competitive pressure in this market. And so the first step was to gain one partner, or to convince one partner to take part in this project, and then it was much easier to also convince other partners to take part in this project, because of course this project has a high level of interest and publicity, and therefore there was a little bit of pressure for the other partners to take also part in this project. But now after some months the partners have settled well, and found out that the collaboration with the competitors is not as bad as expected.
All right, good to know. That's encouraging for other cities as well when they are trying to test their public-private partnerships further in this field. So let's continue now to Amita and the simulation tool. So Amita, can you please elaborate on what are the advantages and disadvantages of using the Sumo tool compared to other simulation software? Have you found any?
So there is Sumo is open source. That's one thing. Sumo also gives the opportunity to look at environmental emissions and gases. That's the environmental. That's a very few simulation softwares have that, and it's highly portable, and it has a good support system because it's open source and it's being developed by open source people. So that is there. The disadvantage, I would say, it needs certain skill sets to to be able to use it. So that is, I think, the biggest hindrance in order to use this software. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. Good for it's useful information for everyone participating. Thank you for that. And now let's ask a couple questions from our last presenters as well. So Jere, here comes a question to you.
Yes.
So how do you integrate e-bikes into the parking system? For example, loading facilities for battery lockers, etc. And do you also provide separate parking slots for cargo bikes? How do you deal with those?
Yeah, it is on the planning process just now, but the city of Turku will have one bicycle garage where there is a possibility to charge the e-bike batteries, and also there will be the lockers for the batteries and other equipments. And also the last question, so we will also improve the parking stations for the cargo bikes.
Okay, thank you for that. And Nora, you will have the final question about, have you also done research in suburban areas and bike parking? And here needs of commuters are sometimes different from city people, at least we found out in Germany. So that was an experience from there. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Yes, no, we have not actually done research in suburban areas, but we have thought about it while we did this investigation in the center of Turku. But it is a very good idea, and if we have resources and time in this project, it is a good idea to do that, or at least to do it later on. But thanks for the idea.
Great, good luck with the testing. And one more question that has been directed to all our speakers from Finland. So who's the first one to speak on that? But I'll quickly read you the question, and who wants to answer, please do. So do you see also options to integrate parcel last mile delivery into your projects? For example, Föli and transport by buses. So have you considered integrating the last mile solutions into your projects so far? Who wants to answer?
Yeah, I can answer. It's actually quite interesting topic, and we have been making investigations for a long time. So of course, it's slightly difficult because normally this last mile in our area means some kind of suburban or area where there isn't that much passengers. But yes, we have been investigating, and we actually do have some kind of last mile services now already, but of course they have not been digitalized, so maybe they are not that attractive at the moment. But anyway, yes, this is something that we constantly consider in public transport authority.
Wonderful. Hopefully that answered your question. Who posted that? So as we are on a tight schedule, I would like to thank you everyone for participating in this webinar. And I would like to quickly share the final Menti question with you. If you could quickly answer this one. So the code is the same. Can you see my screen? There you go. It's open now. So please, can you submit 3 things you learned from today's webinar into the Menti? So if you don't know where to access it, it was www.menti.com, and the code is 68233 910. And as you are filling in the key learnings, I would like to pass on the floor to Tero for the final words as we are reaching our time limit. You can continue to keep adding those your comments into the Menti as we speak.
Thank you, Christina, and especially thank you for your participation, and especially for the speakers for your great topics. And we have learned very much today new things from seamless sustainable mobility. And I think we will also continue following some of these projects and results and how they will go further in future. And this has been a great opportunity for us to also share our knowledge. And thank you also for the very great discussion, chat questions and answers. And I hope we will also see you in forthcoming HUPMOBILE webinars and other webinars, and we can continue this work and we can ensure that the world will become a better place and we can solve more and more of these mobility issues and make all the transport and mobility more sustainable. Thank you for you all.